So much to the surprise and frustration of some of you, I'm not a big live rock fan, especially in a fish-only system. But regardless of what type of live rock or foundation rock is in the tank, part of a regular aquarium service for me is rotating the coral decorations. Typically, my customers will have two sets of corals. One that I've got here that I'm going to prepare for the next service, and one that's in the tank currently getting dirty. The preparation of those decorative corals is a bleach rinse and then a freshwater rinse to get rid of the bleach. That brings those corals back to their nice, bright, white, red, or blue colors. One of the things you have to keep in mind when you're bleaching corals is you want to select naturally colored corals. In other words, a lot of corals are predominantly white. Some of them are red, such as the organ pipe coral. You might find a few blue pieces, and of course there's the purple striped barnacles. But beyond that, most of them become artificially colored or painted, and through the bleaching process will probably lose some of that color. So as I get ready for this big 300-gallon service tomorrow, I'm getting the corals bleached. In this case, I'm actually bleached them earlier today. I'm going to move them over here so they can begin to rinse overnight, and then we can take them out to the service tomorrow. So let's get to work. Now you heard me just a little bit ago say that I'm not that big a proponent of live rock. There are other living elements within the fish tank that can be beneficial though. This particular 300-gallon aquarium has an explosion of little sponge that's growing all over the rock. And again, this is not live rock, and this is a tank that we set up from square one about 2 years ago. So one of those fish in the tank is introducing through his gut the sponge seed or spores, and in turn it's growing all over the rocks. To some it might not necessarily be attractive. To others, it might be quite interesting. To me, I think it's a significant benefit for two reasons. One, sponges are a natural filter. They suck water in and then pump it back out through a siphon, and they filter that water as they do so. And so it's a natural filter. The other benefit is the fish will consume it. So it's a food source for the fish. And in particular, there's a queen angel in the tank, a true queen angel, and she is doing exceptional. And I attribute a big portion of her success to the sponge that's growing in the tank that she's probably eating. So as I said earlier, let's get to work. As I mentioned, this tank was set up about 2 years ago. Prior to that, it was a 215-gallon aquarium that held many of the fish. Now this spatial palace that these fish live in, 300 gallons, 96 inches long, 30 inches tall, 24 inches front to back. And that's a laminate or black laminate stand-in canopy. And the aquarium has rounded front corners with a single internal overflow in the back. Leads down to a wet-dry trickle filter. Here's the star of the aquarium. This is a true Caribbean queen angel. She's beautiful, along with the blonde naso tang, and of course every aquarium of mine seems to contain a longhorn cowfish. Here's another prize. This is a golden or banana eel, also from the Caribbean. And here's the original inhabitant. This, I believe, is a sabo puffer, a good 12 inches long.
Need help, Jim?
I've got it. Thank you very much.
And with all of my service accounts, we'll take and spread out a drop cloth, whether it be a large beach towel or a utility pad or utility blanket that you can get from any local hardware store. This will help protect you from the drips and spills that we both know we're all going to make. Because as you stick your arm in and out of the aquarium, there's going to be some water that's going to drip off. Some people are much more particular about that. So in this particular case, part of the service is protecting yourself or protecting your liability insurance, as well as protecting the customer's property as well. And here's that set of corals that I just recently bleached and brought over to the customer's location. We'll go ahead and lay them out for two reasons. One, I need the styrofoam container that they arrived in to put the dirty corals in. And two, it gives me an idea with a quick glance as to what I have available so that when it comes time to decorate the inside of the tank, you can visually see what you're working with. And with the two empty boxes in position, we can now open the top of the tank and get ready to start taking the corals out. But before we do that, we have to turn off the water pump for the filter system below.
Now this system has a wet-dry trickle filter on there, and even though it does hold on a lot of schmutz, and over time I'll have to bring the gizmo in here to clean that schmutz out of there. As far as I'm concerned, you can't find anything better for biological filtration as well as aeration. We've also got ourselves a Euroreef protein skimmer in here that does a good job, and we are low on water. So let's go ahead and turn the system off. And by the way, this system also has one of those spa type pumps or circulation pumps on it. This one does 3,600 gallons an hour, and it draws from a strainer behind that coral. And there's a return back in that corner, another one back in that corner. And its job is just simply to circulate water within the system.
Now, remember I was talking about that sponge growth?
And you can see the sponge growth that's occurring on here. And this has all come into the tank since it was set up. We suspect he might be the one who's depositing it, but he's the one who's certainly benefiting from it. But you can see all that sponge growth.
And what's interesting is it only seems to grow on the rock. I don't see it growing on the back of the tank. I certainly don't see it on the front or the sides of the tank, but that's probably due to the frequency of service given to the tank. The gravel and sand at the bottom of the tank actually to a certain degree has become live as well, primarily with spaghetti worms. But that's another part of the story. Let's go ahead and get all these dirty decorative corals pulled out of the tank. With all the decorations out of the tank, it's now easier to see that sponge that's growing on the rock inside the tank. Interesting enough, it all seems to grow on the top or the sunny side, the light side of the rock, as opposed to the underside of the rock. And yet it's spread out quite evenly throughout the entire rock structure. As I pointed out before, it not only provides filtration within the tank, this tank, we very rarely need to use activated carbon. And at the same time, it's a great food source, in particular, that queen angel. So with the decorations out of the tank, it's now time to clean the inside panel of the aquarium. This being an acrylic aquarium, 3/4 inch thick material, by the way, is going to require a cleaning pad made specifically for acrylic. And as I've pointed out many times in the past, always start at the top, working your way down towards the gravel line, and making sure that that cleaning pad is free of debris before you even start the job. And so we'll go through using that acrylic cleaning pad, wipe down the interior of the tank, try to eliminate the algae and whatever other debris has grown on there. Not only the front panel, but we'll also do the two end panels as well.
So because the lights are not that strong in the tank, it doesn't grow that much algae. So you saw I was able to use the hand pad to wipe the entire front. I'm now going to use the pad on the stick to get down at the gravel line.
This is the most likely area where you're going to pick up a granule of gravel or sand and ultimately scratch the aquarium. So once again, we've saved it for the last thing. And as you can see, we've attempted to move as much of the sand and gravel away from the front edge of the aquarium. And then, using short strokes and monitoring it as we go along, we can clean off that layer of algae that's growing at the gravel line.
So we've cleaned the inside of the acrylic portion of the tank. Come on back for part 2 as we go through and siphon out the sand at the bottom. That sand has become live sand, and we're going to vacuum it with our regular vacuuming tool. So see you for part 2.